The dance was war unlike any other ever fought in the long history of the Seven Kingdoms. Though armies marched and met in savage battle, much of the slaughter took place on water, and especially in the air, as dragon fought dragon with tooth and claw and flame. It was a war marked by stealth, murder, and betrayal as well. A war fought in shadows and stairwells, council chambers and castle yards, with knives and lies and poison. Good tidings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is the Advocate, and today I'm an advocate for House of the Dragon Season 2 Predictions. So after a successful first season of the House of the Dragon TV show, which I thought was a pretty good adaptation of the initial Dance of the Dragons chapters of the Fire and Blood book, I thought, why not take a look at the Fire and Blood book and see what we may potentially be in store for in Season 2? Especially with recent news that the second season of House of the Dragon has just completed filming. Plus the release of a new House of the Dragon trailer, which was released after I recorded this video. So let's take a closer look at our crystal ball, or more appropriately, the Fire and Blood source material, and break down Season 2 into 8 theoretical episodes. Let's go! Whoa, hold your horses there, Advocate the Younger. This is Advocate the Elder, chiming in to let you guys know that the following video will contain spoilers. We will not only be spoiling events from Season 2 of House of the Dragon, but also events that will likely happen after Season 2. So if you have not read Fire and Blood or don't want to know what happens in the future of the TV show, then click off this video and come back to it at a later time. If you are knowledgeable of said spoilers or don't care, then stick around and like, comment, and subscribe because you're awesome. So if George R.R. Martin is to be believed, it looks like we are in store for a total of 4 seasons in order to tell the complete story of the Dance of the Dragons War. If an HBO spokesperson via Deadline is also to be believed, then it also looks like the House of the Dragon producers are looking to end Season 2 with a bang. Looking ahead at what we have left in the story, I believe the following moments would correctly justify said bang label. They include Rhaenyra ascending the Iron Throne, Aegon II burning Rhaenyra, Aegon III ascending the Iron Throne. Each of these moments has major ramifications for the story and could function as a finale for each of the respective following seasons. Looking specifically at Season 2, I believe Rhaenyra sitting the Iron Throne would be the most apt conclusion given that the story's tone immediately changes following her ascension. So using our knowledge of Fire and Blood and what we've watched thus far in Season 1, let's divide the events immediately following Lucerys Valyrian's death and the events of Rhaenyra's triumph into 8 individual episodes. Let's start with our Season 2 premiere, A Son for a Son. Now the premiere needs to set the tone for how the rest of the season will unfold, and I think there is no greater tone setter than that of the infamous blood and cheese moment. But before we delve into that infamous incident, let's start from the beginning and take a look back at the events immediately following Lucerys Valyrian's death in Fire and Blood. Simultaneous to Lucerys' failed mission in Storm's End, Jacaerys Valyrian, Lucerys' brother, actually succeeds in his mission to court the Vale, White Harbor, and Winterfell to Rhaenyra's side. This is where I believe Episode 1 will begin as we focus in on an exterior shot of Winterfell. This Winterfell setting, which is new for House of the Dragon, will not only function to give us that feel-good, nostalgic familiarity of those good old Ned Stark days of yore, but it will also serve to introduce us to our newest cast member in a young but stern Cregan Stark, who is reported to be played by actor Tom Taylor. In this episode, Jacaerys will befriend Cregan Stark, and both will form a fast friendship which will soon be known as the Pact of Ice and Fire. However, things get a little interesting when we are introduced to a new character in this story in this mysterious wolf girl named Sarah Snow. Now looking back at Season 1, whenever the showrunners are faced with an event from the book which had multiple different testimonies, the writers tended to side more with this one particular character who also happens to be my favorite character in the entire book, that being Mushroom. Now, Mushroom is very interesting because unlike the other perspectives in this book, Mushroom tends to self-insert himself into a lot of the big events that take place during the Dance of the Dragons War, and also gives very salacious accounts of a lot of the things that happens, oftentimes joking about his own penis. However, beneath the sex joke facade, there is quite a bit of truth to his sort of depraved testimony, because he tends to say a lot of things that happen, which a lot of the other perspectives tend to not believe. All this to say, I think this trend will continue with Season 2, as the writers will likely side with Mushroom here as well, and delve into his account of a secret wedding which takes place between Jacaerys Velaryon and Sarah Snow underneath the Heart Tree, despite, Jace already being betrothed to Baela Velaryon. While all this is going on, Rhaenyra, who is on Dragonstone still shocked following the news of Lucerys Velaryon's death, will find within herself a new resolve and officially wage war on the Greens. It is also here where Daemon will issue a warning raven with the message, "An eye for an eye, a son for a son, Lucerys shall be avenged," and thus set in motion the dreaded events known as Blood and Cheese. Now ordinarily Daemon would be issuing this raven from a recently taken over Harrenhal, but given that Daemon wasn't in Harrenhal at the conclusion of Season 1, I think Daemon will just issue this warning directly to the Greens from his current Dragonstone residence, and the showrunners will likely hold off on his takeover of Harrenhal until the next episode. As far as Blood and Cheese go, for those of you unaware, Blood and Cheese are the nicknames given to two assassins who, under the instruction of Mysaria, and by extension Daemon, sneak into the Red Keep, find Helaena Targaryen's quarters, bound and gag Alicent Hightower, and then take hold of Helena's two youngest sons. They then urge Helaena to choose which of her two sons she wants to lose in retribution for Daemon losing his stepson. Helaena, seeing no way to save both of her sons, picks her youngest son Maelor Targaryen to die. However, in a brutal turn of events, the assassins instead kill her older son Jaehaerys and then flee the castle, leaving behind a horribly grief-stricken mother and grandmother to deal with the aftermath, and also leaving behind a still-alive Maelor with the knowledge that his mother essentially ordered his execution. This whole scene is quite horrific and a major chapter in the war. Yet I have full confidence in the producers to do right by this scene and give it the terrible weight it deserves. It is this blood and cheese moment which will cap off a powerful first episode and start to the season, and set the dark precedent that none of these royal characters are safe. Episode 2-2, A Steel Fist. Following the events of Blood and Cheese, I imagine the producers will want to start this episode with the show-only funeral scene for Jaehaerys, giving us additional glimpses into Aegon II's rage and Helena's grief. While the Green sympathizers mourn the loss of the young Targaryen, Larys Clubfoot, our big villain in plain sight, will torture Blood after the assassin's capture and learn of Daemon's role behind this attack. This knowledge will rile up the Greens, and they will look to respond to Jaehaerys' death with retribution. So, similar to the book, Otto Hightower will write letters to the Triarchy in an attempt to negotiate with them to gain their support and face off against the Blacks in the war. While all this is going on, our prime blood and cheese culprit Daemon will fly off to Harrenhal much later than he does in the book, and easily capture the lightly garrisoned castle. There he will seize the remaining members of the Strong family and happen upon a mysterious new woman named Aelys Rivers, a malign Melisandre-like enchantress reported to be played by Gail Rankin. She will arrive into the show with some interesting new possibilities for the lore, and I'll be very curious to see how the writers handle her character here. Regardless, we have a new Harrenhal seat for Daemon, and here he will likely sit for the remainder of the season. Meanwhile, at King's Landing, Aegon II, being the impatient brat that he is, won't stand for all of Otto's letter exchanges and wants things done now. Being fed up with his uncle, Aegon the Elder will remove Otto from his Hand of the King position and bestow the Chain of Honor onto his trusted steel fist in Criston Cole. Criston will accept this honor and gladly help Aegon II in cleaning out the dungeons of any potential Black supporting filth. This episode is sure to give us further insight, albeit negative insight, into our drunkenly impulsive king and our friend-zone Hand of the King as they hang these treasoners. It'll be a stark reminder that regardless of who one is or how blameless they may be in this war, war is an ugly thing and everyone suffers for it. Episode 2-3, Sworn Brothers. By the by, I doubt the showrunners will title these episodes as such, as they give too much of the plot away, but given I can't come up with any better spoiler-free titles for the life of me, Sworn Brothers will do. Now again, I'm sure the writers and producers will add so much more context and content to what we already have in the source material, as truth be told, between the events of the previous episode and the next episode, we only really have a few paragraphs of information here. But regardless of what they fill out, I think it's fair to say that the main event of this episode will be the Eric Cargill versus Eric Cargill duel on Dragonstone. Similar to how the producers gave Lucerys more screen time prior to his death, I think the producers here will likely give the Cargill brothers more screen time as they flesh out their characters prior to their mortal duel. This will play out by Criston and Aegon devising a strategy in which they will secretly ship Eric Cargill, that's Eric with an A, off to Dragonstone in order to have him sneak into the castle and kill Rhaenyra's children. However, that plan will backfire, as when Eric arrives into the castle, he'll come face to face with his twin brother Eric, that's Eric with an E, and they will have a duel throughout the castle grounds. Now, depending on who you ask in the story, this duel is all sorts of poetry, but the duel will inevitably end with both characters killing each other. Now, I'm not sure if both brothers will say "I love you" to each other during their duel, but I'm sure the showrunners will incorporate elements from each version of events in order to give the duel the gravitas it deserves. And I'm looking forward to it.
Episode 2-4, A Dance of Dragons.
Alright, this is it, the mid-season finale, and it promises to be a climactic one. If alleged leaks are to be believed, it looks as if we'll be getting the Battle of Rook's Rest here in episode 4. Per Fire and Blood, following Eric with an A, his failed assassination of Rhaenyra's children, the impatient Aegon the Elder and Criston Cole will devise another plan in which Criston, augmented by armies from the royal household, Rosby and Stokeworth, will sack Duskendale and Rook's Rest soon after. Criston will accomplish the Duskendale portion of the plan, but when it comes time to sack Lord Staunton's Rook's Rest, he will find the castle to be barred and gated. Criston, being the common sensible man he is, will burn the lands around Lord Staunton's stronghold and brood over his sexless life. Staunton, in the meantime, trapped with no escape, will send a raven to Dragonstone asking for help. However, on Dragonstone, Rhaenyra and most of the Black Council are still grief-stricken over Sir Eric, that's Eric with an E, his loss. With Rhaenyra's children and nieces still too young to fly into battle, Rhaenyra will dispatch her only available dragon rider in Rhaenys to assist Staunton. Unfortunately, Rhaenys will fall into a trap here as Criston, having anticipated the arrival of only one black dragon, will ensnare Rhaenys with 2 green dragons of his own, Sunfire ridden by Aegon, and Vhagar ridden by One-Eyed Aemond. The ensuing battle will be known as the Battle of Rook's Rest. This battle will rage on for a while, likely taking up the latter half of the episode. But in the end, despite being badly burned and having his dragon injured, Aegon will come out victorious. Rhaenys, on the other hand, sadly will meet her end here, with her dragon dead as well, thus capping off the half-season on a downer. Now this will be a very effects-heavy episode, with lots of post-production likely involved in animating the dragons and the ensuing battle. So given that a lot of the season's budget will likely be consumed by this one dragon battle, I'm of the belief that the Battle of Rook's Rest will likely be the only giant battle we see this season. Now I know this doesn't make much sense in terms of my predictions that Rhaenyra winds up on the Iron Throne at the end of the season, as the Battle of the Gullet, which takes place not too long after this battle, is essentially the impetus that gets Rhaenyra to fly off to King's Landing. However, I think there are ways to work around this one dragon battle per season limitation and still have Rhaenyra sit the Iron Throne. But before we get to that, we must first delve into
Episode 2-5, Protector of the Realm.
So we just had our big climactic episode and once again need some breathing room following this giant event. Cue this slower follow-up epilogue. Following the Battle of Rook's Rest, Criston Cole and a relatively unscathed Aemond will take Rook's Rest Castle, put everyone to the sword, including Lord Staunton, cut off Maelys's head, and send it back to King's Landing alongside a badly burned King Aegon. However, it is here where the Kingmaker Criston Cole will turn to Aemon Targaryen and bestow upon him the honor of ruling the realm in Aegon's place as Aegon recovers from his injuries. Aemon will gladly accept this responsibility, but despite being a selfish piece of filth, he won't call himself King of the Andals, but instead style himself as the protector of the realm, the Prince Regent. Later on in King's Landing, Aegon will be rushed to his bed where he will be tended to by maesters and septons as they do everything in their power to make sure Aegon nurses back to health. All the while, Alicent, who, by the by, has been portrayed much more favorably in the show than in the book, will stay by Aegon's bedside to tend to him every day. Helena, however, will not be checking up on Aegon during his time of need. Now, in the book, the reasoning for Helena not being by Aegon's side is due to her being catatonic after the events of losing her son Jaehaerys. However, in the show, if you remember in Season 1, the producers made an interesting addition to Helena's character by gifting her the ability to prophesy through these weird dragon dreams, i.e., beasts beneath the boards. Something tells me that in this episode, Helena will continue to prophesy, maybe mentioning riddles about Aegon the Elder's fate, which, spoiler alert, he will eventually die, that her idioms will potentially be misinterpreted as madness by the castle folk. As all this is going on, the Gold Cloaks will be parading Melee's head around the streets of King's Landing as a reminder to the commoners that the Greens are in charge here and they are not to be messed with. No doubt the producers will likely make this Melee's parade Larys' idea, as again, he's the big villain behind the shadows. Meanwhile, on Dragonstone, a noticeably angry Corlys Velaryon will be pissed off at Rhaenyra over the death of his wife Rhaenys, and he will question Rhaenyra why she wasn't the one to fly to Rook's Rest instead. Internal turmoil will transpire, and Corlys will walk out on the Black Council. That is until a young Jace, who has been slowly growing and learning over the course of the season, and secretly cheating on his betrothed wife, will come up with a plan that may not only bring an end to all the squabbling, but also potential victory for his queen mother. And that plan is...
Episode 2-6. Huh?
Not gonna happen until next episode, because unfortunately it's been leaked that the sowing of the seeds, aka the Red Sowing, will take place in episode 7, which for episode 6 leaves us with... blank. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this is a bit confusing, as between the aftermath of Rook's Rest and the events of the sowing of the seeds, there's not really much going on in terms of story. I'm not even joking, look at this. At the top here of page 468, Corlys is going off about how he hates Rhaenyra for killing his wife, and then the sowing will take place here. Here you see already the word seeds. So all this to say that there's only like 2 pages here worth of information to expand into an episode 6. I mean, I guess the producers could spend some time on Joffrey Valerian and Rhaena Targaryen flying off towards Goldtown to be fostered by the Maiden of the Vale, but there's not much meat there. The writers could also add the events of Ormond Hightower attempting to reach King's Landing but getting stopped by the Beesbury and Tarmy army until Daeron Targaryen comes to his rescue. However, the producers of the show have kind of a hate boner towards Daeron because, unfortunately, it's been leaked that Daeron may not even be present during the events of Season 2. Really, all that's left is Alicent barring the gates to prevent anyone from escaping King's Landing, which is a scene, I guess. But unless the showrunners stretch that out over the course of an hour, there's just not much going on here. Honestly, it seems like this episode may just be a bunch of show-only filler, which is just kind of something. But after this, we finally get to the good stuff.
Episode 2-7. The Sowing of the Seeds.
When Jace will finally enact his beautiful plan to sow the seeds. For those of you who don't know, the Sowing of the Seeds is a giant casting call to all potential bastard children of Targaryen or Valyrian descent to prove their bloodline by attempting to ride a dragon. If successful, these would-be dragon riders will be granted lands and the honor of riding alongside the royal army. It's a fascinating chapter in the war and one of my favorites in the book, and will result in the christening of 4 new dragon riders. These include the dubious Hugh the Hammer and Ulf the White, who will go on to betray Rhaenyra in Season 3. However, they also include Adam of Hull, who bears a striking resemblance to a certain sea snake who just became Hand of the Queen, and a mysterious dark-haired, dark-skinned girl named Nettles, who manages to befriend and ride one of the most dangerous dragons in the world, Sheep Stealer. I am super hyped to see how this will play out in the show and all the ensuing dragon shenanigans. However, unfortunately, for some strange reason, it seems that the producers have made the decision to remove the Nettles character from the season, and that is all sorts of disappointment. Now, there is a way to ride around Nettles' absence, including the popular theory, which is that the showrunners will give Nettles' scenes over to Bela, thus giving Bela all of Nettles' screen time. However, the whole strategy reeks of late Game of Thrones, we the producers know better and are going our own way from the books, and it leaves me not excited. But anyway, I digress. Regardless of Bela or Nettles, these 4 new dragon seeds alongside Jace have enough firepower to take the fight to the lightly guarded King's Landing, which as you recall really only has Aemon's Vhagar to defend itself, and finally take the city for themselves. This is also the part in the book where Aegon the Younger and Viserys II come under attack by the Triarchy during their voyage to Pentos, resulting in the Battle of the Gullet, which will cost Jace his life and does a serious number on Corlys' army. But as we discussed earlier, it appears that the showrunners are messing with the timeline of events with this season, and due to time constraints and budget, are postponing the Battle of the Gullet for Season 3, meaning that as far as the end of the season goes, Jace will still be alive. But anyway, without the Battle of the Gullet and Jace's death, we need an ensuing event which will trigger Rhaenyra's desire to finally take over King's Landing. And she will get that trigger event in
Episode 2-8, Fire and Blood.
Aemond, pissed off at the Blacks for leaving his brother in critical condition at Rook's Rest, will find within himself a new resolve to take the battle to the person he deems the biggest threat, Daemon. Despite his mother's urging to wait for Darren to arrive, Darren, who's that? Aemond will commence his angry march towards Harrenhal alongside his trusted steel fist, Criston Cole. Unfortunately for Aemond, his move towards Harrenhal will play exactly into Daemon's hands, as Daemon, having received advance notice of Aemond's departure from his friends in the City Watch, will abandon Harrenhal and meet up with Rhaenyra at Dragonstone to urge her to take the now undefended King's Landing. With Aemon's dragon off in Harrenhal, Darren's dragon non-existent per the showrunner's hatred of Daeron, and Helena's dragon out of commission due to Helena being a mad woman stuck in her dragon dreams, the Black Dragon army assembles, including a still alive Jace, and easily takes over King's Landing. This takeover job will be made infinitely easier by the City Watch backing Daemon and killing a bunch of gold cloaks in the process, thus leaving the Red Keep ripe for the picking. Seeing that resistance is hopeless, the Dowager Queen Alicent will bend the knee and surrender the city to Rhaenyra. Now, unlike the book, where Alicent kind of goes off on Rhaenyra and swears Aemon will take vengeance on all of them, the show will likely continue to sympathize with Alicent's character, as she'll be made to look like a beloved mother who had no choice but to surrender the city in order to save her children and thousands of innocent lives. On the contrary, the show will probably continue to villainize Daemon, which I'm not saying he's a hero, but the show definitely loves Alicent and hates Daemon more than Grand Maester Munkin does, as Daemon used sneaky tactics to kill Alicent's Gold Cloak's defense. But regardless of different characters' alignments, the city will fall, Alicent will be arrested, and the Blacks will win the war! Huzzah! Everyone hugs, Jace parties, Corlys gets down with his bad self, Mushroom kisses a girl, Criston kisses no one because he's an incel. Happy ending! Until the Black Army finds Aegon II missing and his bedchamber empty, alongside everyone's favorite hateable villain, Larys. I'm sure he's not going to come back into the fold down the line with some sort of messed up plan. Well, no time to worry about that. Let's behead Otto Hightower and watch our good girl Rhaenyra finally sit on the Iron Throne she deserves and has long been promised to her. Oh, I've got a tear in my eye. Best ending ever. Series over. Oh, wait a minute. The camera lingers on Rhaenyra a little too long there at the end. And then we see it. The final image of the season. Rhaenyra lifts her palm up, and she sees blood on her hand. The Iron Throne has rejected her. Boom, fade to black. This final image will set a bloody precursor for not only Rhaenyra's downfall, but the downfall of the entire Black Army and their hold on Westeros, which we will unfortunately have to wait to see until Season 3 in 2026. But that will be Season 2 of House of the Dragon. Oh boy, that talking about that finale kind of got me hyped up for what's to come. But what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with my episode predictions? Obviously, I made a few leaps in logic here by buying into some of the rumors and leaks, but given the information we have on hand and the already available text in Fire and Blood, I think this is a pretty good summary for what's to come. Regardless of how right or wrong I wind up being with my predictions, though, I'm very much looking forward to Season 2, and I hope you guys are as well. But until then, stick around to this channel for more fun videos, and I hope to see you guys next time. The Advocate, out.